So it's been 73 hours, or a little over 3 days, since I first got my hands on the Samsung Galaxy A73 5G, one of Samsung's latest and greatest A-series smartphones. In this video, I want to share with you some of my personal experiences I've had with the A73 after around 3 days of personal use, and share some insight on whether or not I can personally recommend this Galaxy A73 to whoever may be watching this video. So let's get started. Starting with the price. I personally paid $500 for this phone, which I know is quite pricey for the A series, but you are getting a ton here for that price, which I'm going to get into during the course of this video. And prices on these A series phones always drop over time, so I'll leave some links down in the description if you want to check out the latest pricing for yourself whenever you may be watching this video. So then what is it that makes the A73 so exciting? Well, to put it simply, the A73 has been, initially at least, one of my most favorite user experiences I've ever had with any A-series phone, but there are some questionable downsides with this A73 that I'm going to jump into. But for right now, the things that make me so excited about this A73 are the processor, the display, the nice refresh rate, large battery, and just great overall user experience. So starting off with that processor, Snapdragon 778G. All I can say about this processor initially here is that it is just buttery smooth. It is a very good experience as far as A-series phones go. A good way to illustrate this is just putting it side by side quickly with the Galaxy A53. So this is packing a different processor than the A73. There's an Exynos processor in this A53. Doing some general navigation things, it's just a bit choppier in my experience. Whereas on the A73, it is honestly very smooth. There are still some stutters here and there. It's not an S22 Ultra by any means, but as far as average day-to-day use goes and just having an enjoyable smartphone experience for those who can appreciate that, it is definitely being delivered here on the A73 5G. And along with that good processor, we have an excellent display here. This is a 6.7-inch 1080p 120 Hz AMOLED display. This is pretty much cream of the crop display as far as Samsung goes. This is a screen size that has been used on many Samsung phones in the past, and it's one that I have personally been very much drawn to. It is on the bigger side, so you are going to feel it a little more. Having a large screen paired up with that good processor makes this great for gaming, just great for watching YouTube content. You have a dual speaker setup on this phone. This screen also gets very bright. It goes up to 800 nits, so I love having a brighter display. That's been something I've really been valuing on phones lately, so that you can use this outside in direct sunlight and not having any issues seeing your display. Something that also really surprised me with this A73, which was also a positive aspect of the A53, but is even more so better on this A73, is the weight. So getting the trusty scale out here, we can drop the A73 on here. We're at about 184, 185 grams or so. Let's drop the A53 on here for a quick comparison. So it's 188 grams, 189 grams. So it's very weird to me that we have a larger phone, same battery capacity, and it's a lighter weight. That 180 gram amount is much lighter compared to some of the other Samsung phones I've recently been using. Galaxy S22 Ultra here. Drop this on the scale, 228 grams. So even though there's only a 0.1 inch screen size difference between these two phones, you're getting what is a significantly lighter phone. Part of that definitely has to do with the build materials on this phone. So we have a plastic frame on the side and a plastic backing. But as far as design goes, very nice design. The design of these A-series phones is definitely stepping up. You compare it to the Galaxy A71. So this is 2 generations ago. You can definitely see the improvements in the design here. This just pops out so much more. They're definitely matching it more with their higher end S-series phones. So here's the Galaxy S22 Plus. You can see they're going for this kind of shiny siding and then the matte finish on the back, which I think is a great combination. Of course, the S series is much sturdier. We have an aluminum frame, but that's not to say that this phone isn't durable at all. Some people may prefer to have a plastic phone so that they don't have to worry about the back glass breaking or cracking or anything. And we do have an IP certified water resistance rating on this A73, so you're not going to have to worry about anything happening to this phone if you get caught out in the elements. But how has the battery life been on this A73? Happy to report that the 5,000 milliamp hour battery, initially at least, has been holding up more than well enough for me personally in my usage. Now, this use case, I know that the majority of the usage is from watching YouTube, which doesn't consume nearly as much battery as other applications. For what it's worth, 4.5 hours of screen on time over the course of a day, I ended up with 48% battery left. In another day of my usage, we have a full day used here. We had 3.5 hours of screen on time, so not using the phone as much. We ended up with 53% battery, and the majority of that battery was used on a trip that I took for 2 hours, so 16% being used for 2 hours of using Google Maps. Something that is kind of odd to me is 8% used on the always-on display. Usually for me personally, always-on display uses about 5% battery, but it seems to be eating up a few more percentage points, so that's something that I will keep an eye on, check back in on during my 73 days later review. But something I definitely want to point out is 1 hour of YouTube only taking 5.8% of the battery. It's just absolutely crazy to me. Excellent battery life. But with all those positives, there are a couple negative points that I do want to bring up, and I'm just going to call them head scratchers because at this point, I don't understand why Samsung adds and removes so many various features from these A series phones. First and foremost being the lack of a headphone jack. So the A73, no headphone jack. A53, no headphone jack. Galaxy A13, this one does have a headphone jack. One step above that, the A23, this also has a headphone jack. So for whatever reason now on these higher end A series phones, they're removing the headphone jack. I have no idea why. It's just a feature that I feel like a lot of people could benefit from. Also, another questionable thing for me personally, last year's Galaxy A72 had a 3x optical telephoto lens, and now that's just completely gone on this A73. But with that said, there is a very good camera experience aside from that on this A73, and I've really been enjoying the ultra wide lens in addition to a 108 megapixel primary lens. Video side, you can film up to 1080p 60. I like to film in 60 frames per second. It just looks smoother, but you can film in 4K 30 if you wish to. We also have the depth sensor, which does a great job of blurring out your background and focusing on your subject in this photo here, for example. And there's also a macro lens, which does a slightly better job compared to the lower end A series phones as far as looking more crisp and more clear. And overall, I'm very pleased, initially at least, with the camera experience here. But with that said, the lack of the headphone jack and the lack of the 3x optical zoom, I can live with it because I've just been really enjoying the lightweight, large battery, large display, smooth refresh rate, great processor, 25 watt super fast charging, dual speaker setup, water resistance rating. You're getting a lot of things packed into this A73. And it's definitely worth mentioning that we do have a micro SD card slot still intact. Again, it just adds up to what has been one of the most enjoyable A series phone experiences I've had to date. And overall, I think this is a device that you should definitely keep on your radar, but I'm curious to hear your thoughts on the Samsung Galaxy A73. And if you enjoyed this video, then be sure to give it a thumbs up, and please consider subscribing to the Shane Simons YouTube channel today so that you don't miss my future videos on all the other A series Samsung phones and everything else Samsung. Thanks so much for watching. Take care.